Welcome to another episode of Discovering the Book of Mormon through Science and Exploration. As presented in our video on the City of Bountiful, in the 1st century BC, the Nephites were under attack by the Lamanites and had to fortify the cities in the land of Bountiful. We also provide evidence that the city of Nazca, Peru, on the shoreline plain far south of Lima, Peru, was a qualified candidate for the city of Bountiful. A neighboring city to Bountiful was the Book of Mormon city of Mulek, which is famous for its amazing walls and fortifications. The Book of Mormon tells us that the terrain between the cities of Bountiful and Mulek is described as plains. The plains were in the wilderness, which, according to linguist Hugh Nibley, probably meant that the plain was found in a desert land. Another geographical clue is that there were borders near the city of Mulek and the seashore. Hugh Nibley wrote that the term borders in the Book of Mormon usually meant mountains, since in Mesopotamian and Egyptian languages, borders translates to mountains. Before the battle to retake Mulek, the Nephite army camped in the borders or mountains near where the Lamanite army was camped in the mountains by the seashore. This geographical description fits perfect the ruins of a city found next to the modern city of Tambo Viejo in Peru. These ruins rest 54 miles south of Nazca, our candidate for the city of Bountiful, in a fertile valley next to a shoreline desert plain in the shadow of the Andes Mountains. Besides the geography, do the ruins at Tambo Viejo in Peru qualify as a candidate for the city of Mulek? What do we know about this Book of Mormon city? The most important attribute for identifying the city of Mulek was its complex and imposing fortifications. Chief Captain Moroni ordered strong fortifications to be built to protect the city. However, while Captain Moroni's army was fighting the Nephite kingmen in the land of Zarahemla, the entire Lamanite army, seeking protection within its fortifications, attacked the city of Mulek and captured the city and many neighboring cities and forts. The fortifications of the city of Mulek were probably constructed about 66 BC. See the footnote to chapter 52 of Alma. Because of the remarkable design and construction of its fortifications, it was impossible for the Nephites to retake the city of Mulek while the Lamanite army was within its protected walls. There was only approximately 1 year between the time Moroni ordered the fortifications of the cities of Bountiful and the time that the Lamanites captured the city of Mulek, that it appears that these fortifications were erected quickly. For this reason, the Nephite used only, quote, cast up dirt around about to shield them from the arrows and stones of the Lamanites, end quote. The Nephite fortifications were described as, quote, heaps of earth, banks of earth, walls of stone, or a dug-up ridge, end quote. At least some of the banks of thrown-up earth had ditches next to them. The design of the Nephite fortifications allowed entry to the city by only one single place of entrance, probably a guarded gate. An additional feature of the Nephite fortifications was towers from which stones could be cast down upon the enemies. What do we know about the ruins at Tambo Viejo in Peru? In an archaeological conference paper entitled The Earliest Settlement in the South Coast of Peru, archaeologist Lido M. Valdez of McEwen University reported on the design, the building, and the age of the fortifications at Tambo Viejo. Here are some of his conclusions. The walled fortifications of Tambo Viejo were constructed during the first half of the early intermediate period of Nazca. Radiocarbon dating provides a date of approximately 55 BC, plus or minus 60 years, an incredibly accurate match when compared to the construction dates of the Mulek fortifications in the Book of Mormon, 72 to 66 BC. The archaeologists discovered that the walls that surrounded Tambo Viejo were massive and built of dirt, gravel, some cobblestones, adobes, and mud. In other words, heaped up earth. The outer earthen wall of Tambo Viejo extended for 1.5 kilometers, nearly an entire mile, from north to south, and 0.5 kilometers, a third of a mile, from east to west. The enormous size of the compound could easily have hosted a city and a large Nephite army. The outer walls of Tambo Viejo were impressive, standing 5 meters high. That's 16.4 feet, and having a base width of 6 meters, 19.6 feet. If the enemy could somehow breach the outer walls of the fortifications, they still faced 2 inner walls. Valdez also found that the fortifications had ditches next to them. He gives this description. Quote, "The ditches were likely produced at the time soil was removed to build the walls. Intentionally placed or not, the ditches probably constituted an important component of the defense system, making it even harder to overcome the surrounding walls." End quote. Besides walls of cast-up earth, the Nephite fortifications included towers. The fortifications at Tambo Viejo included 11 man-made high platforms that were probably used as watchtowers or to counterattack. The fortifications that Captain Moroni's forces built were not only strong, they were meticulously engineered. The Lamanite captains were, quote, "astonished exceedingly because of the wisdom of the Nephites in preparing their places of security." Another design feature of the city of Mulek was a singular fortified place of entrance. Like the ingenious fortifications designed by Captain Moroni, the walls of Tambo Viejo had a single access point guarded by towers. Archaeologist Valdez describes the engineering of the inner fortifications of Tambo Viejo as equally intriguing are the 2 parallel walls on the west side of Tambo Viejo. Such a design probably was strategic, where the outer wall was likely built to prevent the entrance of enemy parties, whereas the inner wall was to obscure the way of successful intruders, particularly if the attack was carried out at night. Due to the height of the outer wall, perhaps initially standing about 4 meters high, 13 feet, the smaller interior wall more likely was invisible from the outside. Thus, the attackers who managed to enter the site from its western side not only found an additional unexpected barrier to overcome, but also became trapped between the 2 walls and were unable to escape. Furthermore, between the 2 walls just noted, there was a long empty space, but without an obvious access. This space was divided by a small wall into 2 halves. The northern section was further subdivided by a large mound built between the 2 parallel walls. Indeed, 2 parallel walls may have been an effective method to obscure the way and slow down the escape of attackers. If the attackers were successful in overcoming the above obstacle, there was still an additional large wall in front of them before reaching the well-protected rectangular compound. Hence, this overall site plan of Tambo Viejo appears to have been carefully designed to lead intruders into the space behind the western wall of the rectangular enclosure, a spot where they could have been easily finished off. Mesoamerican cities generally did not have walled fortifications. 2 exceptions were the cities of Uxmal, 700 to 1000 AD, and Tulum, 500 to 600 AD, both coming after Book of Mormon times. The same is true for North America. The 3 most important pre-Spanish settlements were Poverty Point in Louisiana, which had no walls, Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, and Chahokee Mounds in Illinois, with a 2-mile-long wall, all built around 800 AD, well after the time of the Book of Mormon. The only walled earthworks that date to the Book of Mormon era are the dozens of small mud enclosures of the Hopewell earthworks dating between 100 BC and 500 AD. These small enclosures did not and could not have housed an entire Nephite city, and certainly not an entire Lamanite army. Once again, we see that the Book of Mormon provides an excellent candidate for a Nephite city. Tambo Viejo has the right location, timing, and unique architecture to qualify as the city of Mulek. Discover more about the Book of Mormon by subscribing to this channel. You can do so by clicking the link below. It is absolutely free. Or you can visit our website, christinperu.com. That's one word, christinperu.com. You can learn about our books and our annual tours to Peru. Thank you.